I'm finally able to have some alone time and record. So I've been reading Eragon today, and I've got 110 pages in, and I really only just started a few hours ago, actually. Um, I guess I have always been a bit of a fast reader, but there's not too many words on the pages, so it's nothing really that impressive. Um, it's just the most I've read in a long time from a book, like that fast, and actually enjoying it. The last time I made an audio about it, I didn't really talk very much about it, um, because I didn't get anywhere with it. I just kind of opened it and then closed it again. But I actually wanted to read it, and it actually mostly really just out of necessity because what's been happening lately is I guess I guess I've done something that is like some sort of damage to my eyes that has lingered um, from spending too much time on computer and phone screens. Considering it's just because of the way that my life is. I've strained my eyes, and sometimes I'll get headaches, and it's gotten worse to the point where I really can't spend more than a few hours on my computer anymore. When I was younger, I used to spend like when I was like 17, 18, that sort of thing. I used to spend like all day long on the computer. And it's just kind of because there's not really anything out there for me in like the actual world. So, you if you're that kind of person, like, back in the day, you would read a lot of books or something. Well, now today, if you're that kind of person who you don't go out and drink and fornicate, and you don't really have friends outside in the outside world, like in where you live, at least in person, then you would probably become a bookworm back in the day. But nowadays, you just spend all day on the computer. And I'm not the only person who does that, but I've never heard anybody else talk about getting these kinds of like I can feel the strain behind my eyes. And there's like this bit on my head behind my right ear that gets like inflamed, and like a muscle will spasm back there. Um, and if I spend too much time on a screen and then I look away from it, and if I move my eyes in certain directions, like my there'll be like a spasming back there that is not painful, thankfully, but I can just feel it doing that. So I guess I too much time on the computer, which and I mean that's basically the reason that I bought these books, and I bought some psychology books because I have a little bit of an interest in that sort of thing. But I wasn't really enjoying the psychology books very much, so I decided to try to read some Eragon today because on Friday I had the Friday off because it was Good Friday, and I didn't really do anything. I mean, like I literally spent hours sitting in my room in darkness or sitting outside on the porch, and that was basically how I spent my day. Because I couldn't really look at a screen, and even if I wanted to put on a YouTube video for audio, I would have to look at the screen and search for something, and then if an ad came up, I'd have to look at the screen and skip the ad. So it just wasn't really worth it to try to manage that for most of it. Um, I did, I think it might have, kind of on Saturday, I sort of did the same thing, but I did end up like playing Gary's mod for a little bit, and uh, did a few other things on the computer, just kind of doom scrolling, um, and on YouTube and watching some movies. Tried to watch Hot Fuzz a few times, but I've ended up putting it as background audio, and I've fallen asleep to it twice in the last 2 days. And I really want to try to Actually, I don't even know if I want to watch it because I can listen to it. It's just I don't like when movies have such a volume difference in their dialogue versus in the music that plays. The worst offender I can imagine um, was the first few Harry Potter movies where the characters would whisper and then you would have this deafening music track play. Um, it's really annoying when the audio isn't equalized to be around the same volume. I mean, it makes more sense from an artistic perspective to have the audio differ in volume for different reasons, but it's just annoying when you want to put it as like a background noise and lay down or just listen to it or even just watching it. And either you can't hear somebody all of a sudden or it's too loud, so you have to turn things up and down. I'm pretty sure it actually woke me up because I was sleeping and woke up at 1 a.m. and it was so loud. I figured I had to turn it off because I didn't want to wake anybody with it. So it may have woken me up, or I just may have woken up by myself anyway. Um, Eragon, the book is it's more entertaining than because I remember before I bought it this recent time, I tried to read it a long while ago for a second time. Um, and it did seem to me to be not written as well because I've noticed that people online will comment about, how it was written by a 16-year-old. I'm not sure. I may have to get further into this series, but looking at it, I'm not actually sure there's that it would be noticeable if you didn't know it was written by a 16-year-old. Because a lot of adult books, have a lot of stupid things in them and they're uh and unrealistic things. So, it's in any flaw in this book might not necessarily be because he was 16 at the time, but it might be that we are scrutinizing it more heavily. Anyway, so like 100 pages in, I'm enjoying it well enough. And it's just repositioning myself here in my bed. Um, I remember immensely enjoying this series the first time I read it, so I am interested to read all of this again. Um, I'm actually going to be sad if I get through it and it's over because it's evoking emotions and feelings in me that I haven't felt in a while that I've always really enjoyed. Where you get the adventurous feeling or the after the it's the hero's journey. You get the call to adventure. Um, there's themes of family and love and heroism and sacrifice and destiny. All this cool stuff. Um, it you can see why they call this genre fantasy. Um, it's just such a fantasy. It's like it's just like peak. It's funny. It's peak young man daydream. You know, saving the world on some adventure, having some grand destiny, being special, having cool powers and cool weapons and you know just it's awesome. It's awesome. Um, I I would like to write. I need to buy a typewriter or something. Something that'll let me write by typing without looking at a screen that will hurt my eyes. Because um, I can't be writing with a pen on notebooks. It's too slow and it hurts my hand because I guess I'm too handed with it. I don't know. And if you need to make some edits, it's too time consuming. Um, there was a sentence in the book. It was describing one of the traitors that Eragon was meeting. Um, and it was describing this man. It said he seemed to regard the world with a slight contempt. Paraphrasing that. And I actually closed the book and just had to think about that one for a minute. Because I wonder if I do that. Because I definitely have contempt for the world. But I thought it was interesting how, at 16, the author had the idea of people who do have contempt for the world like that. Um, that was interesting. I remember liking Roran's story because he has this whole thing where he's fallen for one of his neighbors, basically this village girl, um, and he's going to marry her, but then they get caught up in all the adventures and the wars, and they have this whole romance thing that's going on at the same time. Roran is developing into this man and leader and warrior, and I remember being a fan of all that. Um, Getting back to it now, it's honestly actually a little bit painful. Um, and I don't want to have to read all about all of it because I mean, I'm I'm several years older than Rorian would have been around that time. Um, and okay, I have to be careful with my words because I don't want to curse myself, so that's why I'm pausing. It's just that so far, okay, I'm not going to talk about this. I don't want to make predictions for the future or say anything along those lines. But painful, even though the book hasn't really gotten into it so far, it's just kind of hinting at where it's going to go with the story. It's painful to read about. Um, Actually, other things can be painful too. Like, what comes to mind is Harry Potter, where Harry and Ron and Hermione are such close friends, where to the point where they can rely on each other for anything and trust each other completely, essentially. For most of the series, anyway. Um, and they met when they were like 11, and then they stay friends into adulthood. I've always said, that's this is where the real fantasy is. It's not the magic and the swords and the dragons and things like that. It's in the relationships and the love that these characters have. Um, the family and the friendship. That's where the real fantasy is in these books. So it can be tough to read about when reality isn't like that, at least at present. I don't really know what else to say about that. But it is um, entertaining so far. And I like how it's just a classic so far. I like Brahms' character. I like the descriptions of how the characters appear with what they're wearing and such when they're wearing robes or something, and they're mysterious or scary or whatever. I you know Okay, how far into this recording am I? Might have to make this into two parts. Um, I don't wanna be. I don't really know how to say this. I guess it's just I've really been. It's just embarrassing for me to say, even though it shouldn't be because it's nature and God's design. But I've really been wanting a woman lately. I said that too fast. I said it. I've really been wanting a woman lately. Um, and I just want to move on with life in that way. In this book, this Eragon book, when Rorian announces his intention to his father to marry this girl that he knows, um, Rorian and Aragorn were both expecting um this this father to be angry. Um, but he actually wasn't. He just said, it's the natural order of life, for a man to, he grows up and he leaves his father and mother and joins with a woman. They become one flesh, right? Um, it's how like people have always functioned. Uh, but because of the way I am with various things, but because of my nature and my behavior and my thinking and my worldview and the way my heart is and the way my mind is, it I don't connect with people so far, uh, as simply, as quickly, as easily as others would. So I'm just kind of stuck, just waiting because I feel that I can't make the next step in my life until I meet that woman. Um, and really, I just don't even, everything that I want for myself, aside from this, and to start a family, um, and to have that to to motivate me and to just to have it, like it everything else that is not that, I have it already. I have my video games. I have my fantasy books. I have delicious food. I have my own living space. I have enough money that I could go on. I could travel to somewhere else in the world if I wanted to right now. I have money. I could quit my job and go somewhere and then come back to my job. Um, if I wanted to do that. But that's just not what I want. Um, and it's really unfair of people when when somebody expresses a desire for something like this, people will often dismiss it. Um, and just say, there's more to life. Um, I mean, but this is what I want, and it's a major part of the human experience. I mean, for many people, it's what their life revolves around is their family. Um, and I mean it just I don't. Some people maybe they want to be famous or they want to be rich or successful in some way, and I just don't really care about that stuff. Um, you see a lot of things on the internet where there's this whole grind culture where you have to grind and work hard and set some goal and do something and just work your butt off, and it's all in this vain pursuit of glory, I guess. Uh, I just don't really want that. I don't want any of it. I just want to have some children with a beautiful woman and raise my kids. Um, like there's nothing wrong with that at all. Um, it can't just be any woman. It can't just be, you know, it can't just be anybody. It has to be the right person. Um, so it's not really it's not a sex thing is what I want to say. It's not a sex thing. It is an intimacy thing and a loneliness thing, but it's not a sex thing. And I think that's a big part of where my insecurity in expressing these desires is, where I don't want people to think it's just a sex thing, because it isn't. But the image that it comes to my mind is, imagine just clasping hands with someone, you know, just just imagine two clasping hands that like are holding each other tightly and comfortably, right? That's the kind of closeness, right? Like that you're looking for in emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, whatever else. Physically, I guess too, right? It's just someone that you can trust. I think that's someone that you can trust, someone that you're comfortable with. You know, I think that I would be satisfied with um, having some kind of friendship with a man who was like a brother to me, but I don't think that's going. It just doesn't seem like that's not the main course, I guess, because God designed human relationships so that we would become closest with our wife or husband, depending on if we were man or woman. So, and it's not just because of physical reasons, but of our energy and who we are. Um, because being a man is so much more than your physical construct um, of being a man, and being a woman is so much more than the physical construct of being a woman. Um, you know, I think that we're just designed this way, um, where when it comes to um, like the word partner. Partner is a good word. Um, 'Cause for some people, I notice I'm saying a lot, and I think it's replacing another word that I'm not gonna say just in my speech. It's a vocal tick, but it's preferable to me than the previous one. So I hope it's not annoying. Um, I forgot where I was going though because that distracted me. Partner is a good word. For many people, life's a single player thing, but for most people, it is intended to be a cooperative or multiplayer experience. So when you're when you would like to have some cooperative play or some multiplayer or something, but because of the way you are, you're basically forced to play single player, and you don't even. I mean, you have some people, but the shameful thing about it is they're online, and it doesn't make them any less of a friend. It's just there's only so much time that you can spend around that person, and you can only get um so involved with each other's lives anyhow. Um, and also with my eye strain, it's like I can't even spend as much time on the computer anymore anyway. So, for when it comes to friendships and relationships in real life, uh, there's just like nothing here. So, it just sucks. Um, on my there is one person on my mind that I know in real life. Um, or know of and have interacted with a few times. It's just that we're so different. And, the Bible says, not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. To be honest, I don't know if it's possible this person could be a believer and just doesn't act like it at all. Like another person that I knew of, or I knew. Um, which is worse. It's worse to be a believer that doesn't act like one. Um, but that's a major thing. The Bible also said at one point, um, you should marry so that you don't burn with lust. But the thing is everybody's always talking about this, about waiting for the right person, and that whole time you're waiting, because we're all human, you're gonna burn with lust sometimes, and it's just it's like, if I could just get married tomorrow, I would. So I don't know what that point of that piece of advice was. It's like, Paul, if I could, I would, but I haven't met the person yet. And I guess maybe that's my fault. Maybe it's my fault, and I have to be going to church, and maybe I'm with. That's what I hope isn't happening. I hope I'm not just withholding blessings from myself because I have problems with modern churches and the way that they work because it doesn't seem to me like they function the same way that churches used to function. And back in the day, it was if you were in you know if you were in sexual immorality or some other kind of idolatry or something, you could get kicked out of an early church. But with a lot of places, they'll just open their doors to anybody, and I don't really think that's the way it's supposed to work. I think that anybody should be able to hear the gospel. Um, but I feel like the club should be a bit more exclusive. Um, and even if that meant, I don't know. Because with the open doors policy a lot of churches have, on the one hand, people get to hear that message. Um, that should all there should always be an option for people to hear the message. Um, but it's just weird how churches are somewhere you only go for a few hours on a Sunday, it seems like. And maybe I just am not involved enough. I don't know. I don't know. It might just be my fault. But anyway, I feel like I've talked about this enough. And the my thoughts went into the same direction as they usually do. Um, I don't know.